Hello, I'm Lex. I'm a senior solution architect here at Bitrise, and I'm going to be guiding you through configuring Build Cache for React Native. Let's go ahead and start here. This is the Bitrise dashboard, and I wanted to just start here to showcase that there's a variety of different CI projects here. Most of them have been configured as native development projects, but for the use case of multi-platform developers, we wanted to make sure to have an offering for the capabilities that are available with Build Cache and being able to reuse some of the works, whether it's build output specifically or compilation cache, etc. So I have a CI project already added in here, and that's the one that we're going to be using to leverage the Build Cache configuration. I'm going to go ahead and navigate here, and I have some information available here already, and that is through the other projects that have already been configured. But when I go through the process of setting up a new connection from scratch, so let's say you might not even have any data there, one of the first things that we ask you is to choose your build environment. So Build Cache is flexible enough where you can provide your own CI provider and still leverage the benefits of Build Cache. However, in this scenario, we're going to go through the flow of I'm already a Bitrise CI user, and I'm going to go ahead and configure it as such. So that's already pre-selected, and then you're being asked the build tool that you use. We're going to go ahead and select React Native. And now this shows me a list of the projects or repos that I've already connected up to Bitrise, and Seek React Native is the one that we want. It detects the build tool correctly, so we're going to proceed. Now there's 3 steps that we need to configure the workflow with in order for us to proceed past this page. The first thing, it's asking you to select the workflow in the editor. It has a link that can take us there directly. And you want to add I'm actually going to copy this, since as you can see, you can click to copy. We're going to copy this step ID, but it is the activate build cache for React Native step. And once we add this to the workflow, this is what you want to start speeding up your builds. It's going to activate the build cache essentially. And then you want to save the changes. There is an important note here that if you store your YAML inside of your Git repository, you do have to commit this instead. So not something that you would do with the UI. We're going to go through the UI flow before we proceed. I can click on this directly to take me to the page that I need to. I actually already have it here on the side, so I'm going to do that. And in my scenario, for this project, I actually happen to have my build for the iOS and Android separated into their own individual standalone workflows. The idea here is, in my situation, I'd probably go ahead and craft a pipeline that will then go ahead and run those 2 in parallel. That way, while I'm building a React Native project, if I happen to have any issues with the Android side of things, I wouldn't want to compromise the iOS portion and vice versa. So that's why I have them separate. However, your configuration may differ. You may do everything in a single workflow run. The idea is that you want that step added in both of those situations. So I have a primary Android and a primary iOS. Currently, this lacks the steps themselves. So after I do my my dependency installation, or here with CocoaPods, this is where I would essentially, prior to doing the build script or running the build commands, that is where I'd want to activate the build cache. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that ID that we copied earlier. But if you search for build cache for React Native, this is also going to be the hit that you get. I'm going to go ahead and add it. As you can see, very plug and play. Not anything else that we have to change here other than saving these changes. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same for Android. So prior to my build, this actually works with both build scripts that's executing the commands that you would expect for the Android build process or the iOS side, as well as it also working with the native steps that we have in our available library, like the build Android step for the Android build, of course, and the Xcode archive and export step, which is very popularly used in workflows for iOS builds. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. And as you can see, the step is the exact same. So there's not a difference in the step that you would need for the iOS side or the Android side. Like I said, it's just important that it's present on both of them because you want to accelerate the build in for both of them. Okay, so I've gone ahead and saved those changes, as you can see. And so I'm going to go back to my last page where I can go ahead and tell it, hey, I went ahead and completed that portion. Now, you want to enable command level analytics. This is an important piece so that you can essentially grab you're using a prefix to your build commands. As you can see here, Bitrise Build Cache React Native run. Typically you would run yarn build master Android anyways. So like that in itself doesn't change. It's just this prefix that's important. If you're using our first party steps, this is done for you. As you can recall, on my configuration, I actually have scripts. So I did go ahead and have to add that prefix into my command as well. So I had actually already done that before that, but it is an important note that you would need to do that. Build cache will work without this, but I'll showcase to you where after we have everything configured and once you have builds going, you have that dashboard that we looked at earlier. It's going to segment things correctly when you have this prefix, because for React Native, we're going to be collecting data for both the commands that ran on the iOS and the Android side. So without that prefix, you could expect the information to still be available, but it's probably going to filter it distinctly for iOS and Android, where you would want to have it together for the one given build that ran those commands. So it's just important to do that. And you can copy here directly. But in my case, I completed this already, so I'm going to proceed. And then the idea is now to warm up the cache. So you want to start running the workflows you configured in the previous step, and then you can begin searching the cache history to look at the build cache overview. And yeah, you start running your builds. This is something that we'd want you to do at this stage before selecting done. In my case, I actually had some pre-warms already, but since I did go ahead and add the steps, again, I'm going to go ahead and run them. This is my particular branch, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and also run the iOS one. Primary iOS. And one other thing to keep in mind is to warm up the builds themselves, because there's different machines that pick up your jobs and things like that. We typically recommend 3 to 5 builds to really make sure that your cache is populated across different data center machines, etc. And that's where your builds, your subsequent builds, can then reliably start seeing the speed benefits. So while these builds are running, let's take a look at what this looks like on the CI side. When you do have the step available, you can see that this is where you'll notice just all the printout for the logs where the build cache CLI is being leveraged. And the idea is, artifacts were produced here. If I navigate back to the other builds that are running, when I navigate to build cache, or actually, let me just so that I can show you. Let's go ahead and tell it that we completed the steps and just finish this process here. So when we go to React Native, you'll see that my initial builds already ran. And this is just kind of like the warming phase, right? So we're still not going to be seeing the increased cache hit rate as we would expect on the subsequent builds. Probably once the other 2 builds finish, we'll start seeing some of that. But like I said, 3 to 5 is usually our goal. But now you see that whether you ran iOS or Android as your target, this is now collected here on the React Native versus where you would typically see Gradle, Xcode, there's Bazel as well, etc. So part of the prefix is making sure that that information is available here, and then you can look at the individual invocation details. So let me move my face out of here. You can see that on this iOS build, I have my Xcode invocations and the specific commands that ran, the durations, and when they started. So these are the details that you can expect. And as you run your subsequent builds, this is the same place where you'll start seeing that cache hit rate number grow. And as that grows, it means that more and more stuff is being utilized or reutilized between your builds, therefore accelerating your total builds. And that is it, guys. That is how you configured build cache with React Native. I hope you guys are able to follow this and get started, and just happy building, everyone.